When I first got sober, the quitting drinking was the easy part. The hard part was facing those issues that led to my alcoholism without the aid of booze. In this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what I did to overcome crippling social anxiety and how you can apply those same principles in your own life. You see, I literally thought I had tried everything at this point. I had seen a handful of different therapists. I had tried every anti-anxiety medication known to man. I tried joining groups, following the therapist's advice and joining groups in Meetup and meeting people online. I read every book I could get my hands on about social anxiety and communication. I listened to all the audiobooks I could find. I listened to podcasts. My nutrition and exercise were already on point. So I had literally tried everything I thought of and everything I could find that the experts were telling you to do to get rid of your social anxiety. I tried all the morning routines. I tried all the nighttime routines. Nothing was working, and I was at my wit's end. I was going crazy. But what I was doing everything except the one thing that was actually going to move the needle. The one thing, which is putting yourself in those social situations, those situations of discomfort, those situations that scare you, those situations that worry you and give you the real reason you have anxiety. That's what I needed to do. It was around this time I realized I could start putting forth those same principles that I applied in fitness and nutrition. Those same principles I could apply to improving my social anxiety. All I had to do was start where I was in my journey and to take baby steps. It's all about baby steps done with ruthless consistency over time lead to great results. So that's what I did. I started looking for ways so the first baby step was looking for ways I could add low risk, uncomfortable situations into my day. The easiest thing to do is to take the conversations that you're already forced to have. For me, that was, the people working at the gym or the people at the checkout counter at the grocery store. And I would do one simple thing. I would make one add-on comment each time we had a conversation. That would be most of the time that would be a compliment or an observation I would make. And this is important because it takes the focus off of yourself and onto them, which is what you should be focused on. You should be listening when you're having a conversation, not thinking about what you look like or what you sound like or anything like that. So that was baby step number one. I started doing this and started adding on one conversation per day. Baby step number two was interacting with strangers. I forced myself to interact with one stranger per day. Most of the time for me, that looked like, again, the grocery store or the gym. I would make up what I wanted to say. I would have, conversations over the strawberries or over the blueberries, or I would ask somebody about an observation I would make about, the milk or a protein shake that I'd see in the aisle, in the dairy case at the grocery store, or just something simple at the gym, a compliment with somebody at the gym. And I have to say, at this point, this was right smack dab in the middle of COVID, people did not want to have conversations with strangers. So I was getting a lot of awkward conversations. They were almost all awkward at the beginning, and hardly any would go normal. This did start to increase and get better as time went on. But before I go on, I need to tell you, when I first started doing this, it scared the shit out of me, and I really hated having to have those conversations. But that's where the growth is. That's how I knew I was on the right track. If I had a button I could have pushed to get out of doing that activity every day, and I wouldn't have to feel bad about myself, but I had to get punched in the face to push that button, I'd have smashed that button 10 times out of 10 every single day. But the problem is, I don't have that button, and if I didn't have the conversation, I was going to feel bad about myself regardless. And I know what you're thinking. If you're a normal person, that's crazy. You would be willing to get punched in the face to not have to go through 10 seconds, 20 seconds of an awkward conversation. But for me, and for those of us who suffer with social anxiety, it's not just 10 or 20 seconds of awkward conversation. I then would go home and beat myself up for the rest of the night about how in my head it would be, you stupid piece of shit who can't have a simple conversation with a stranger. And then I would start wanting to punish myself for having those thoughts about myself. That's not how you're going to improve, and that's not how you're going to grow. As those conversations and as that ratio started to get a little better and more in my favor, I started to have more conversations that went a little better and less awkward conversations. I increased the frequency of those conversations. I went from having one interaction with a stranger every day to 3. Once I did this, I started putting myself in a lot more uncomfortable situations and started seeing a lot of growth. I started having a lot more normal conversations and a lot less awkward pauses and have to slither out over an awkward conversation. What happens is you come to realize that you get more comfortable being uncomfortable. It's kind of like when you start at the gym and everything is a pain, everything feels hard and heavy. Once you apply some consistency and get in a routine, the weights start to feel a little lighter. It's not that the weight got lighter, it's that you got stronger and were more capable of handling the weight. That's the same thing that happens in these social situations. You go from being extremely discomfortable and extremely uncomfortable to getting much more comfortable, and you realize that it doesn't matter what happens. You realize that one awkward conversation isn't a big deal, and you just keep moving forward, and you keep having. And then this increase. Once I started increasing to 3, I started going out and not using it as I have to have the 3 conversations. I started going out and looking to have those conversations with strangers that were doing things that were interesting to me and made me want to have conversations with them. At the end of the day, it's taking action and doing the thing that scares you. That's what's going to move the needle. That's what's going to get you through it. The obstacle is the way. And that, coincidentally, that's one of my favorite books by Ryan Holiday. It's an absolute banger of a book, and you should go out, and if you're struggling with these, that's a great book to help you get through these. But if you just read the book and don't actually put it into action, you're still going to be struggling. You're still going to wonder why it's not getting any better. It's because you're not taking action. The action is the key.